So-and-so posted about this on this person's birthday, but didn't post on mine. Should I be upset about that? Friends moving away, feeling like, oh my God, my best friend is posting about her new best friend all the time, and I'm feeling jealous. Her OG bestie is an influencer, but there have been some issues when the friend won't get off her phone when they're hanging out together. I wanted to talk about that. Hello and welcome back to the Hello Hayes podcast. In this week's episode of Hello Hayes, we are talking about social media and comparison in friendship. A few episodes back, we talked about social media and the role it plays in a romantic relationship when one person always wants to take selfies and you don't. And I think that the lessons in that episode can apply to friendship too. But today we're specifically talking about social media and friendship. Comparison is one of those words that comes up in this conversation about social media. But where my brain immediately goes, because maybe this is the most normalized, is like body image, wealth, and comparing what other people have to what I have or what I don't have. One of the other kind of insidious categories here, I feel like I've been using that word a lot, insidious. Am I even using it correctly? God, I hope so. That would be embarrassing. One of the other painful categories of social media and comparison here is as it relates to friendship. I've heard the echo of so-and-so posted about this on this person's birthday or wedding or whatever, but didn't post on mine. Should I be upset about that? Or I am upset about that. Is that weird? Or friends moving away or staying close and making new friends and feeling like, oh my God, my best friend is posting about her new best friend all the time and I'm feeling jealous about that. Oftentimes people can't quite articulate the feeling as jealousy. They articulate it as a discomfort, but what it often is insecurity or jealousy. Anyway, I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about this theme in today's episode. We've been getting a lot of letters around this. Social media has been coming up a lot. My relationship with social media has changed a lot since making Hello Hayes. We have one letter writer whose two best friends live in a different city, and the person who wrote in is feeling like really left out by the way that they're always posting on social media and is wondering if they should do anything about that. We have another named Bummed Bride who noticed that only a few of her bridesmaids posted about her wedding on social media, whereas they posted about other people's weddings, and she's wondering, do I have a right to feel hurt by this? And in our third letter, we have someone whose bestie, OG bestie in the Six Besties Theory, Hello Hayes universe, her OG bestie is an influencer, and she's thrilled for her, happy for her, but there have been some issues when the friend won't get off her phone when they're hanging out together and is wondering how to deal with the social dynamics of that. So let's dive into our three letters, shall we? Letter 1. Hello Hayes. My two best friends live in the same city and hang out all the time, whereas I live 4 hours away. Sometimes I visit them or they come to visit me, but I constantly feel left out. It also feels as if one of them constantly has to post on Snapchat or Instagram to tell the world that they're hanging out, which makes me feel more alone. As a side note, she hardly ever posts me when we hang out. She always texts and snaps me when they're together, so sometimes it feels like she does this purposely to try to let me know when she's hanging out with them. They have their own inside jokes now and are constantly talking about things in front of me that I can't relate to or know nothing about because I don't live in the same city. I know it's not purposeful, but sometimes it feels like it is. It hurts my feelings because I feel alone in the city I'm in. Since I know they don't mean to hurt me, do you think I should bring up my feelings? How should I go about feeling this way? Yours, Friendship FOMO. Okay, love. Oh, when you said, how should I go about feeling this way? That's going to become like my new favorite phrase. How should I go about feeling this way? That is the question when a big complicated feeling comes up. It's almost like the words get kind of jangled and it's like, how do I go about this feeling? And I think it's a great question. Your phrasing made me smile is all I'm trying to say. And I think that you begin to go about feeling this way by acknowledging that the discomfort you feel is normal. You're going through a shift right now, a seismic shift, let's call it. I don't know when it is that you moved away from your friends, when you moved to this new city, but I do know that you're in a different city from your two best friends and that you feel alone. Those two things happening at the same time are big enough experiences and feelings on their own that they undoubtedly will make you kind of doubt other things in your life that create problems where there aren't really problems, is what I'm trying to say. Being like the third in a friendship trio living somewhere else and watching the other two friends continue to develop their relationship, that's uncomfortable for everybody. So you're not alone there, and I don't think your feelings are crazy. I do think, though, that comparing your friends' in-person digital relationship to your long-distance relationship could be the death of your friendship, has been the death of some friendships. I have to urge you to not do that. Easier said than done, I know, but when you start to notice that you're making assessments, making judgments about real life based on something you're seeing in a screen rather than something that's happening in person, I want you to be able to pull yourself out and just say, hey, I'm seeing something on my screen and I'm feeling something about it, and I know that that's uncomfortable, but before I make any kind of grand judgments or grand declarations about what this means, I'm first just going to acknowledge that this is painful and uncomfortable. And sometimes when this happens, I aggrandize my thoughts. I make them into something bigger than they are. Because I do think there's a possibility that what you're feeling is real and you're starting to tell yourself a narrative that like they're doing something intentionally to exclude you, which we don't know if that's true. And we're actually going to give your best friends the benefit of the doubt that that's not true. But I want to talk about you before we talk about more about the reality. Let's talk about more of the feelings first, because feelings are different from reality, right? We know that. And if we don't know that, we're learning that. Our feelings are real, but they don't necessarily represent reality. I think a lot of the left out feeling that you're describing stems back to the fact that you feel alone in this city you're in. And I want to encourage you to try to separate the fact that you're feeling lonely right now with the reality of your friendships with the two people who live in the same city. You know, you said this yourself, and I want to just congratulate you for this self-awareness. You said, hurts my feelings because I feel alone in the city I'm in. That line right there shows me that you know you're feeling hurt, not necessarily because they're together. What's hurting your feelings, it's stemming from you feeling alone, which makes so much sense. Loneliness can be a really painful feeling when we start to believe that it's forever instead of temporary and part of a transition. I think loneliness is sort of par for the course when you're in transition. And loneliness is also a feeling that comes up on the feeling wheel. Sometimes though, when you're lonely, especially if you're in a new place where you haven't made many friends yet, maybe, and you're far from friends and family, you can forget that the loneliness will pass. And I promise you it's going to pass. Right now, though, I imagine that you're feeling so mired in it, you can't really see the future. And it might be causing you to create stories about what's happening with your other friends who live together. So I say that both to validate you in that being alone is really hard and it can make us feel crazy. So both things can be true. You can be going through something hard and it can be making you not be the most reliable narrator in this story. So I want to talk about the reality here. One reality that can be hard to swallow at first, but hopefully actually is comforting once you accept it, is that feeling left out and being left out are not the same thing. How do we know the difference between being left out and feeling left out? Well, one easy-ish way to tell is if you are in the same place. If your two best friends live in the same city and you don't, they are going to hang out with each other more than you hang out with them. They're going to post about each other more than they post about you. They're going to build a friendship that is separate from you. I know that might be really hard to hear, and maybe you haven't heard that yet, but that's the truth. You don't live there. And the fact that they're going to develop this individual friendship actually has nothing to do with you. And that might be painful too. But decentering yourself from what's happening to them might actually help you start taking this less personally. They are now on a journey of building their own friendship. But guess what? You can be on a journey of building your own friendships with them too. Because yes, while friendships do strengthen and evolve and change when it's like a twosome in a city together, long distance friendships and one-on-one friendships can also grow. You also now have an opportunity to connect with each of them individually in a different way, should you take it. But the fact that you all don't live in the same city is a really kind of clear way to remind yourself that you are not being excluded. How do we know if it's purposeful? When we've kind of gone through the exercise of checking ourselves to see if our insecurity, our loneliness, our mishigas could be influencing our opinion here. And sometimes it's a little bit of yes, but if you've kind of gone through the checklist, like we've established that you're alone right now, you're going through a transition which can feel hard, and you actually don't live in the same city as these friends. You also said something about how you don't think they're doing it on purpose, which sure could be denial, but I don't necessarily think that it is in this case. Evidence of it just being a feeling is enough to wipe out that chance. I am kind of curious though, because in your letter, you go from talking about the friends as a pair to then one friend in particular. You might be talking about one of the friends specifically. Is that true? You said this one friend is always snapping me pictures, but never takes pictures of us when we're together, but is always snapping me pictures when they're together. I'm curious if maybe you have some resentment or something's going on with this one friend in particular. Ask yourself that now if you're listening. Are you harboring something towards that one friend? Because if so, it could be proof of you feeling insecure and this isn't rooted in reality, or depending on the friend, maybe she is also feeling a way towards you. That said, the snapping you pictures of them hanging out together, this could be personal preference, but when I moved to LA and my friends were in New York, I loved when they sent me pictures of them together. Like, I'm too old for Snapchat, Snapchat. My friends and I don't snap. But when they'd like send a picture of the three of them out to dinner to me, that made me feel loved. Snap, I get, is different. They're, sending it out to lots of people. If I understand Snap correctly, God, am I aging myself here? If these are your friends, I don't think they're thinking about it that much. In fact, if they were purposely trying to exclude you, like, I feel like they probably wouldn't snap you. I don't know. Girls can be mean. But if you trust in these friendships, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not intentionally snapping you to exclude you. Like, that would be really mean, maniacal behavior. And I trust you to know, is that your friends? The people you're describing as your best friends? If so, we have, bigger issues on our hands than telling them you feel left out, right? If they're the type of friends who would actively not want to be your friend anymore and then like snap you pictures of the two of them hanging out, this is bigger than, hey guys, you're leaving me out. This is like, you guys are not the kind of people I want to socialize with. But it doesn't sound like that's the case here. Another detail that I thought was interesting was how you said they're always talking about things that they do together in front of me. Is that happening like via texting or FaceTime, or is that happening when you're in person together? I'm curious about it because it can be hard to accept that our friends are having inside jokes without us. There's like a rule in giving speeches, for example, that like don't do too many inside jokes because nobody fucking likes hearing your inside jokes. We're gonna come back to this at the end of this section when we talk about what to do in the future, which is actually coming up very soon. The people who have inside jokes should be much more self-aware of how they're talking about their inside jokes in front of other people. And to you, my love, my writer, when you say that they're always talking about their inside jokes and stuff I don't know about, is there a chance that you are kind of reacting that you don't know about a lot because you don't live there? And everything they talk about might feel that way to you. And since you're already feeling insecure, you're like searching for evidence. We talk about this all the time. When we have an insecurity, we search for evidence that something bad is true. Could that be happening here? Now, I have been around plenty of people who do insider baseball talk. Everything from exclusive to just like insensitive to stupid, right? Like sometimes people aren't trying to be evil and they're not trying to be mean, but they're just like really not good conversationalists. So a bunch of that could be going on. But I'm curious where you're picking up on that. If it's happening online, you might be reading into some stuff too much. And I hope that when I say you might be reading into it too much, that doesn't feel invalidating. If your brain is anything like mine, I can latch on to something and then create a whole fucking story about why my fear is true. And sometimes I need to be told, Alexandra Hayes, like, you are overthinking this. You're creating something of nothing. Don't do that to yourself. So I want to point that out in case that could be what's happening for you here. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is how do we stop feeling left out? Because that concept can feel really hard when we're mired in it. So I wanted to share with you a few of the ways that I have helped myself from not feeling left out of my friends' individual friendships. One is becoming a person who builds up individual relationships, being proud of that. I'm proud that I am someone who invests in one-on-one relationships. That doesn't mean I don't exist in any groups. I do, but I prioritize and feel best in one-on-one relationships. Those are the moments that make me feel most connected. I like feeling connected to individuals rather to a group. Doubling down on that and accepting that as part of my reality. Look at my hand motions right now. That has protected me from feeling left out because simultaneously it's boosted my confidence in relationships. Also, owning my individuality, even outside of friendships. Trying to kind of more purposefully be my own person and take the road less traveled, dress how I want to dress. Strengthening that muscle has made me less insecure about my relationships. It sort of has like had a positive effect on almost everything in my life. So I'd say becoming more of an individual. I feel like some of this could actually be traced back to when I started wearing my hair curly and I stopped straightening it, which was my senior year of college, which was almost 10 years ago. Oh my God. Another way that I've helped myself no longer feel so left out is by actively devaluing public displays of affection and friendship. Stuff like declarations of love on social media, declarations of best friendship, birthday posts, wedding posts. That does not mean that I'm not affected by that stuff sometimes, right? I'm not superhuman, but I have a practice of actively devaluing that. If I ever notice myself feeling like, wow, they posted this, but they didn't post this for me, or are they going to post that for me? I practice literally saying, that's not what I value in my relationships. I value things like personal phone calls, cards, voice notes, and again, these individual friendship things. I don't value social media posts, right? By actively saying that, I make it true. And it's a practice. That's why I'm calling it a practice. The more you practice that, the more you become it. So some ideas for you. What to do about this in the future. It does sound like everybody in this friendship group could benefit from having a little bit more self-awareness of how this dynamic is shifting and how that might be impacting others in the group. Coming to this friendship with a little more sensitivity. You, my love, you friendship FOMO, you have to realize that you have made choices about where you want to live and grow and have these experiences, and there are going to be sacrifices to your decisions and your choices. I hope sacrifice resonates with you. I think it might if you've chosen to live somewhere specifically for a job or for a partner or for an opportunity or for family. And if it doesn't feel like a sacrifice, I think just there are repercussions for our choices, and your friends can't protect you from the fact that you don't live there and they live there. They can't cater to you completely. Parts of this are going to be hard, and you, my love, have to have self-awareness of that. You have to realize how that's impacting you right now, and you have to start to do some other stuff differently. It is on you to work on this and process some of these feelings on your own without projecting them onto your friends. However, your friends have some responsibilities here too. If they want to be good friends, and if I were them, I think they should be more sensitive of like the individual life they're building when they're talking to you, at least right now. It's annoying being with a couple who only talks about their inside jokes and acts like in their own little world. It's annoying being with friends who do that. And if they are doing that, they should be more aware of themselves. We don't have enough details in this letter to know how they're actually behaving. It's very much from your perspective. But if I were in a friendship trio and two of us lived away and one person didn't, I would just be aware, even if that friend wasn't a particularly sensitive friend, I would be aware of the concept of like someone feeling left out. So if the two friends, if you're listening, be a little more sensitive, would you? You asked me if you should tell them how you're feeling. And I think it's a yes and no. I would not say, I feel like you're excluding me when you post each other on social media, or I feel like you're purposely trying to leave me out. Saying something like that without also talking about the fact that they live in a different place and you're feeling alone, it would show kind of a lack of self-awareness on your part. I do think there's space to talk about your feelings here and how you're feeling alone in the city. You have to be very careful not to blame them for something that's happening internally with you. And a reason that I often tell people not to say anything yet, I find that many of us don't do the sitting with the feeling part for long enough. We don't want to sit with the feeling at all, actually, because it's hard to sit with a feeling. We just want to act on the feeling. And talking to the person who we feel is hurting us is an action. It is a hard balance that I'm trying to kind of stretch myself to think about when is the right time to speak, because I do value honesty and directness in relationships. But I do think many of us don't sit with our feelings for long enough, which is why I do kind of harp on that, why I harp on don't say anything yet. First, let's process together and see where we land. So I wouldn't say, I feel like you posting pictures all the time is purposefully excluding me. But you might say, when I see your pictures, it makes me feel homesick for our friendship. Saying something like that could launch a conversation where you don't need like a script of how to participate in that conversation, but it could start a conversation about your loneliness, which I'm sure would feel really good to be vulnerable with them and talk about how it's hard for you without blaming them, you see? Because by not blaming them, you invite them to participate in the conversation instead of immediately putting them on the defensive. About the inside jokes though, like I agree that talking about inside jokes is insensitive. If that happens when you're together, I would try like asking for what you need in the moment, which could be something like, loop me in. I don't know that story. We've all been there when people are telling a story at dinner and you don't know the story and you feel stupid. My favorite thing to do happens to me all the time. Just raise your hand and say, oh my God, I don't know that. Loop me in. I've never had someone, since I've started doing those things I was talking about not feeling left out and kind of becoming more self-confident and owning my individuality, no one has ever made me feel like an idiot after that. In fact, the only thing that's happened probably is I think it's cool. I think it's cool to own up to what you don't know. So next time it happens with your friends, just say, I don't know what you're talking about, loop me in. And if they continue in a way that really just feels insensitive, I think you can feel empowered to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, guys. Can we I'd probably be like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. We talked about this in a previous episode. Like, try to stay as consistent with how you typically talk to them, but just say, I don't know what you're talking about. Can we please discuss something that we can all relate to? Or like, can you explain to me what's going on? Don't think too much about how to say it. Just say it. I think that's all I have for you, friendship FOMO, but no, I'm giving you a big hug, and I really hope something in there spoke to you. And I know this loneliness you're feeling isn't going to last forever, and I'm hoping that after listening to this, you'll be reminded that this loneliness isn't forever, and you'll actually feel empowered and like you have more control over it ending sooner, because it will end sooner as you start to shift your mindset about what's actually happening here. You feel alone, but you are not alone. Hello Hayes. I recently got married and it was one of the best days of my life. By all accounts, everyone had a great time. So I felt a little hurt that only 2 of my 9 bridesmaids shared pictures from my wedding on their social media. I know I might be overvaluing a post, but I was thrilled to share their days on my own page and wanted to show off all the beautiful weddings my friends worked so hard to pull off. I feel hurt that my friends have since shared pictures from other weddings and chose not to acknowledge mine. How do I move on from my own hurt feelings? I don't want this to hurt my friendships going forward, but I'm dealing with my own feelings of inadequacy because of this. Is it worth bringing up to them? Yours, Bummed Bride. I feel really, really torn about this one. Everything I know about weddings and our feelings around them and like how they're designed to make us feel, the way you feel this way for a reason. Like, you are not special here, and I mean that in the most complimentary of ways. Like, you feel inadequate because that is how the wedding industry is designed to make you feel. Like, you just need more. And you don't. Your wedding was not about your friendships. Your wedding was about your decision to marry the person you married. And it makes me sad how tangled weddings have become. And maybe it's always been this way, but it makes me sad that it becomes about something else. And something that, as you've said, was so wonderful and perfect can be overshadowed by something like social media and comparison and friendship. And I don't say that to shame you. So many people feel this way. The reason I'm torn on it is because, like, I want you to resist. I want you to resist giving in to this like really ugly side of weddings. Everything I know about weddings and what it does to like our brain tells me to tell you not to say shit about their lack of social media posts, because we both know that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And your wedding is done and it's still haunting you. I don't want that for you. You don't want that for you. I doubt your friends want that for you. So don't give in. I've really thought about this, and that's my gut, is not to address this with your friends, but we should and can address it together. And maybe there's a way to address it with a friend, which we'll come back to. But I think so many people have felt this way about weddings, baby showers, birthdays, whatever, and say nothing or complain to someone else. And that I'm saying that out loud now. I don't think that means, though, that we should be confronting friends about this. Just the fact that everyone's saying it behind closed doors does not mean that we should be confrontational about it, but I do think it means we should be talking about it collectively, actually. So alas, here we are. You said, I know I might be overvaluing a post, and then kind of continued on to why you're not. Let's kind of focus on that, why you might be overvaluing it. Who cares about the post? Who cares about a social media post? I know you do right now. Emotions are high around a wedding. There's no denying that, no matter your gender or who you are in the wedding. So you feeling like the post matters is representative of the you right now. Will the you a year from now care about this? Will the you from in a few years from now care about this post? I'm going to say no. I'm going to hope no. I hear the argument that says, just tell them they're your bridesmaids, who cares? But I think there's another argument for practicing restraint. I think that practicing restraint in your relationships can be just as important as speaking your truth. And I actually think that maybe this is about finding the balance between the two. Let me tell you some more reasons why I would recommend restraint here. One, as I already said, I really don't want you to fall into like the crazy bride trope. And I think that acting on your feelings about social media posts puts you farther into that camp, even if it's not true. Like, I don't want you to even indulge that type of thinking that puts such high value on posts. 2, everyone had fun. You said that. By all accounts, everybody had a great time. How did you know that? Maybe that's what we should focus on. How did you know everyone had a good time? Did they tell you? Could you see it on their faces? Was everybody dancing? Did you feel loved by your friends? Did everybody have a great time? This is, though, as I'm saying this out loud, when you said, by all accounts, everyone had a great time, so I'm wondering why they didn't post. I'm curious now to think more about you. Like, are you the person who's always concerned at the party about if everybody's having a good time, and then you're looking to like make sure they did? Maybe you were insecure, as everybody's fucking insecure about who's having fun at their wedding. Were you maybe looking for the post as like extra security that the wedding was fun? Could that be happening here? I don't know, but something for you to noodle on. But if you know everyone had fun, like, let that be enough for you, is what I'm trying to say. Don't look for additional proof of the fun if you knew that they had fun. Another reason I think you should practice restraint is that you're giving something power that like really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I know it feels big and it feels like it matters, but we have to push back against that, or social media will become the most important thing in our relationships, right? Like, I do love parts of social media. I think it's a wonderful thing, obviously. I shouldn't say obviously, because sometimes I do hate it. This is a journey for me too. You have to continue to treat social media and the declarations of love that we put on it. You have to treat that as not a big deal. You really must. So I'm telling you that because I want you to practice that. I want you to practice restraint because you're giving something power in your wedding that has no impact on your wedding or what your wedding's about. You know, your wedding isn't about your friendships. And I know that people make it that way. And it's wonderful to celebrate our wedding with the people we love us. But it's not a measure. It's not a show of your friendships. Because a wedding is a milestone, right? It's not an achievement. And is it a milestone? I have to look up the definition of milestone. But I'm more comfortable calling it a milestone than I am an achievement. You didn't achieve anything by getting married. It's just a thing in your life that's happening. But when you make a milestone, such as getting married, suddenly be about everything in your life instead of just that specific thing that you're celebrating, it just opens the door for like the milestone to be tarnished by so many other things. Instead, I like to focus on what the milestone actually is and not make it about everything in my life. And speaking of weddings are not achievements, you are framing this a little bit like a wedding is an achievement. You said that one of the reasons you liked to post about your friends' weddings is because you want to applaud the great work they did. I understand that weddings are a lot of work and you do put a lot of work into weddings, but again, it's not an achievement. Some people probably really will disagree with that, and maybe people do feel like they need to be applauded for the hard work they put in. But I don't think a wedding's an achievement. And I think that if you're looking for other people to make you feel that way or to make you feel like, you did a good job, you got to really challenge that in yourself because that's not what your wedding was about and that's not why you did it. But you might have gotten, as everyone does, you get sucked into the wedding complex and suddenly it's no longer about the person you're getting married. It's about having the biggest wedding or the best appetizers and like the photo booth and all these things. And you want to make sure you have enough bartenders because God forbid anybody has to wait to get a drink. Like, I know how it goes, but this is all about ego. It becomes about ego because you've had experience going to other people's weddings and you see how people talk about other people's weddings. And I understand why you may have become this way, as many of us have and did and will, but you got to push against it. You are not bad for feeling this way. You are human, but I don't want you to indulge this side of yourself because I want you to rise above for you, not even for them, but just so that you can feel better. I really appreciate you bringing up your feelings of inadequacy because it brings in your humanness here. And as humans, one of the things we can do is we can redirect our thoughts, right? We are what we give attention to. I feel like I've been talking about this a lot recently because I've been trying to be much more intentional about what I say to myself. So if you catch yourself being like, Sarah didn't post the picture and like that really pisses me off and like, what is it about me? Replace that with, Sarah didn't post the picture and I know that that isn't personal. Because that's the thing, it probably isn't personal. But in a friendship that is generally healthy and positive and non-dramatic, it probably isn't personal. Most people are selfish about their photos. This very well could be explained by they don't like the way they look in any of the photos. Would that be a selfish reason to not post about your wedding? Maybe to some people, but it isn't about you. That might hurt your feelings because you're like, well, it should be about me. It was my wedding. But they already went to the wedding and had a great time at your wedding. So leave it at that. To focus on that one part of your letter where you were like, well, I posted on theirs. This is a moment for you to be really self-reflective and honest with yourself. Was I posting at their wedding because I really just wanted them to post on mine? Or was I posting on their wedding because I felt like I had to and I felt like that's the right thing to do? That's what you do for your friends. So I just kind of did it. Now I'm pissed off that they didn't at least return the favor. Was I just participating in this like weird cultural thing where we feel pressure to do like a whole montage for everybody's thing? Which I guess is nice, but when it becomes that I have to do it for everybody, I don't really like it anymore. And now that I've seen that my friends don't do it, maybe I don't have to do it anymore either. I don't mean to accuse you of being tit for tat. We all can be a little tit for tat sometimes, or I don't think that simply noticing that they didn't post and you did means that you're tit for tat. But ask yourself, were you being tit for tat? You don't need to tell anybody that. That can just be between you and I. And if you were, you make a decision. Well, am I actually posting because I love the photos, right? They feel artistic. Like I thought the wedding was beautiful. I like the way I look here. My friend looks gorgeous. Post it for those reasons. Don't post things because you're looking for anything in return. That's a lesson I've learned on social media. Only post stuff that you actually want to post. Because if you post stuff that you don't want to post, no matter who you are or what it is, it pretty much always leads to resentment. So don't do that. Don't do that. So that was about practicing restraint. Now I did say that there's something to speaking your truth. So what could moving on from your feelings look like? One idea is that maybe you could confide. You said that 2 of them did, 2 of the 9. Maybe you could confide in one of the friends who did post. Sort of like you're confiding in me here. Don't ask her to say anything to the other friends, but, ask her to like check you a little bit. You could say something like, I'm sharing this with you because I think it's a me problem and I want to get over it. So can you give me a little pep talk that both validates me, but also helps me stop overthinking? I do that a lot with friends. As I said before, I can take a detail and, run rampant with it. All of a sudden, something terrible is happening that isn't actually happening at all. Friends are there to validate you and call you out at the same time. And maybe one of those two friends can do that for you. If you're the kind of person who feels really bitter, you could stop posting about other people's stuff, which we sort of already talked about. You could accept that this is the feeling of life. Everybody notices this stuff. We are human. We'll notice when our friends act one way towards one friend and not to us. So you could practice kind of having radical acceptance of like, I am human. I'm not above feeling this shit, but I am above acting on it. I don't think it's worth bringing up. I don't think it's worth bringing up. Pay attention to how your friendships evolve. Like, there's a chance that maybe this was upsetting to you because you've noticed actually that some of these friends are not really bridesmaid or best friend, North Star bestie material. And that makes sense. I don't think most people will be friends with their bridesmaids forever. Am I going to get in trouble for saying that? I'd love to see some research on that. Feel like a lot of people probably fall out of touch with their bridesmaids, and maybe some of that's starting to happen for you. And the pictures on social media kind of are showing you that, and you're starting to see the cracks and you're upset. But just pay attention to how things evolve. I personally wouldn't say anything. So congratulations on your wedding. I'm sure it was fucking gorgeous. I'm serious about that, not being sarcastic. I feel like that sounded really sarcastic. Wait, I'm feeling really bad about that. This is the kind of stuff. We're gonna leave that in, but I was not being sarcastic there, but I recognize that it sounded sarcastic. So let me just say to you, like, if we were in real life and I said something to you by the bar that sounded kind of sarcastic, I would come back over to you 30 seconds later and be like, hey, I said that thing earlier. I said, I bet you looked gorgeous at your wedding, but I kind of had this like snarky tone, and I just want to be clear that I was not being sarcastic. So let me just say that to you, bummed bride. I'm sure you looked fucking gorgeous. Did that sound better? It's time to move on to the next letter. Hello Hayes. One of my besties is an influencer, and I love this for her. She's put so much work into her brand and success over the years, and has been able to make something she loves her full-time job. The place where I struggle is when we get together. She's an OG bestie, but also a long-distance bestie. So when we get time together in person, it's always limited. She's always on her phone, responding to clients, taking pictures of everything we do and every meal we have. Once she's done taking all the photos, she's looking at them for the rest of our time at drinks and dinner. It feels like she turns our trips and visits to each other as a brand opportunity, a tax write-off, and a potential to make money. I really struggle with this, as I understand influencing is her job, but I hate that it overshadows our time together. It makes our time just feel less genuine. Where do I go from here? Yours? Is it friendship or is it work? I want to point out something that you did in your letter. You went from describing her behavior, which is kind of like people being on their phone the entire time you're together is objectively annoying. So you went from describing an annoying behavior to then like making a grand assumption about why she's doing this. We went from annoying behavior to like master manipulator, none of our time is genuine, creating a master plan. Like we went from that to that, and I'm pointing it out because, oh my God, so many of us do that all day long. I do that all day long. I take one objectively annoying thing, inconvenient thing, but then turn it into something so much bigger. I really want to focus in my own life, and I encourage you to focus, and anybody listening, is like, how can we just kind of take the annoying thing for what it is and then deal with that annoying thing, but not turn it into like an even larger, more problematic existential thing we need to deal with. So for this story specifically, let's give your OG bestie the benefit of the doubt and say that she isn't planning your visits as a business opportunity, but that she does struggle with her work-life integration or her work-life balance, whatever you want to call it. But that is not a strong suit of hers. Let's acknowledge both of those things without making it into a magical story. It's still frustrating, but it's less personal. And from that platform, still frustrating, less personal, I think we can actually make some smart decisions about how to act here. I'm not an influencer. I know some people might call me that. I could list all the reasons why I don't identify as influencer, but that would be boring, and I haven't thought this through, and I don't want to say something about influencers. The reason I don't identify as an influencer is not because I think influencers are bad. So let me say that to clarify the way what I was just saying sounded. I don't do brand stuff. I'm a writer. I'm a creator. I don't know how to talk about this yet, so I'm going to skip that part. However, I can relate to many of the experiences of an influencer, being that I do my work on the internet. So maybe that does fucking make me an influencer. I don't think it does. I have noticed though that since creating work on the internet and like having a platform, being a person on the internet has made it harder for me to disconnect from my phone. I have had to be really deliberate about putting my phone away. I've always actually been pretty good at that, this strength of mine. Like if I'm out to dinner with someone, my phone is not on the table. Like I've always been that person. But I do know not only is our like social media addiction as a consumer inside of our phone, but when it's also your business and like a source of your livelihood, it can get very blurry. And your friend, I could really relate to not having the tools to like properly deal with that. Like I know a huge reason I've gotten good at it is because my husband, who I live with, like really holds me accountable. Our relationship wouldn't work if I didn't find ways to disconnect from my phone. And I don't know what your friend's day-to-day support system looks like, but she might very well be struggling with this, and she might not even know that she's struggling with it, right? This could just be her reality, that like she's just kind of distracted by her phone all day long. So I wonder, like, could you have some empathy for your friend? It's annoying for you, and it could be, and it is impacting your friendship in a not so great way, but like, could you have some empathy for how hard parts of what she does are for her social life or for her mental health, frankly, because, you know, the effects of always being on your phone and on social so much are not so great. But all of that's giving your friend the benefit of the doubt that they do have some self-awareness. Have you tried asking your friend how she manages phone stuff? We talked about this in another episode, how checking in with a friend about how they're feeling when you're annoyed about something really has to be done from a place of compassion, or it could be passive aggressive. I remember when I first started making content on my phone, I'd have friends ask me, like, how has it been with your phone? Like, how are you dealing with social media? Has it been hard to disconnect? Have you had a conversation like that with your friend? Maybe give her an opportunity to talk about what it's been like, and that could kind of open the door to, like, yeah, I noticed that you've been checking things a lot. Is it always like that? Is it hard for you to put your phone away? I can imagine, you know, relate to her. I can imagine that it's got to be hard when not only is your personal life in your phone, but it's also work. What's that been like for you? Can I help in any way? If you haven't had that type of conversation, maybe you do something like that. Also, like, I want you to know it's completely valid for you to want your friend to be present with you. I'm giving her a lot of benefit of the doubt. There are plenty of influencer types and non-influencer types who are just like addicted to their phone and stare at their phone the whole time they're with you. I'd have a hard time being friends with that kind of person. So there's a possibility that your OG bestie isn't as present of a person as you. The nature of her job is kind of exacerbating a personality trait, and this could just kind of be part of who she is. Thinking about what to do here, I would ask yourself, where can I be more understanding, and where am I less flexible, like not willing to compromise? I think that this is, you know, generous, but her taking pictures of everything, taking pictures of meals, that's probably not something you can ask her to stop doing. I don't think that would be fair of you. I think it's reasonable to not want to be in them. You could say, hey, I don't want to be in your photos, but I don't think it's reasonable to ask her not to take pictures of things. I think it is reasonable to ask her to have like a no phones dinner, or like not be responding to clients every meal you're together, right? Things come up, you want to be an understanding friend, but if she's never looking up at you, I think it's totally reasonable to be like, can we look at pictures later? If you do address this, I would be careful of using words like it doesn't feel genuine, only because words like genuine or authentic could be like trigger words for an influencer. So I would just steer clear of words like that. It's really hard to talk about people's phone use without sounding judgmental. It really, really is. I think if you're talking at dinner and she's looking at her phone, you could say something like, I can wait till you're done with that. And again, you want to try to make sure your tone doesn't sound passive aggressive. I think that's actually pretty direct. I don't think it's passive. Like, I would say that to someone if they were not paying attention to me while I was speaking. I'd say, do you need to handle that? I can wait. If she's looking at pictures, you can be like, can we look at those after dinner? And if she's not very self-aware, or like maybe she is self-aware, but she might very well take this personally. She might feel embarrassed when you bring it up. And I don't think you should have to walk on tiptoes or like overcompensate to deal with her embarrassment, but just be prepared and like be kind that if you do bring this up in some way, or if you even very directly say, I know you're dealing with a lot of client stuff right now, but I'm feeling disconnected from you. Can we deal with that after and just be present here together at dinner right now? She might have a reaction to that, and like, you be prepared for it, be kind, don't overcompensate. You're allowed to speak, you're allowed to say what you need to say, but be sensitive to her feelings. No one likes to be called out about being on their phone. No one likes it. Then if you say it, truly be okay. Sometimes when you're the one who says something, and you're kind of calling somebody out on their behavior and they might be embarrassed about it, I think the kind thing to do for someone you love and care about is to like help push through the awkward moment. Like, you addressed it, hopefully they're going to fix it and they're going to respond. You rise up and help move the conversation along back into a normal place. Show them that you can rupture and repair. Show them that you can address something and move on and still love them. Be that model in case they're feeling insecure in this moment where you called them out. I'm trying to like think more about why I responded that way about the I'm not an influencer thing. Clearly this is I think I reacted that way because it's like it brings up some identity issues for me, like who I am, what am I doing here? And I think when I started, it was about a year ago, I think I had a vision of me doing more influencery stuff. Like I had a vision that I would make money by doing brand deals. And I never thought that I was going to be like a get ready with me type product influencer, but I think I did think brand deals on TikTok would have made more sense. And I have, in a year, like my mind has shifted a lot about that for great reason. I think I've, stepped more into my identity as like a writer, and I'm loving making this podcast and creating things and being like a long form video creator. But I think I had that reaction because it's a sensitive topic for me, which is strange that like I could feel confident about something and yet I could still have kind of a knee-jerky, almost judgmental sounding reaction to it. Because I would be like, I'd be lucky for someone to describe me as an influencer, Why would I react in a negative way? And I think any reaction I had that sounded kind of ungrateful or whatever, or just at all questioning, is really just a reflection of like me looking at how I see myself and how I think others see me. And anyway, this was a great conversation, you guys. I love talking with you. I love being here with you. And I'm so grateful that you want to hang out with me. I'm slowly dying of heat underneath this little lamp that's lighting up my chair nice and well. If you're listening to this episode and haven't left a 5-star review, please go ahead and leave one. I appreciate those so very much. And if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, would love for you to watch another, subscribe. I love publishing these episodes and I love talking with you. And I feel like this 3-letter format is working well. I don't want to commit, but I do want to commit. I don't want to be the person that doesn't commit to things, who wants all the benefits of having a podcast, but none of the commitment. God, I cannot be that person. All that's to say, I'm enjoying the 3-letter format. I think at first I thought I was scared about it, but I think it really works the best. Thank you so much for listening and being here with me. I'll see you next week. I love you all, and I'm so appreciative to all of you for being here and for sharing your stories with me and with us. Okay, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.